Hi everyone, I'm Sam, mental health social worker and counsellor. One of the areas that I work in is CBT for depression and anxiety. And today I'm going to talk to you about OCD and a certain type of OCD that I guess isn't as well known and isn't as talked about as maybe other types of OCD. So most people have kind of heard of and know what OCD is, and they tend to associate it with cleanliness, order, and checking rituals. However, there's another side to OCD, which is often not spoken about and can be really distressing for people. And people often put off seeking help for this kind of OCD for a long, long time, and often don't reach out until they're very deeply distressed about their OCD. And I guess the reason that this type of OCD is less well known and less popular in the media and things like that is because of the types of thoughts that people experience with this type of OCD. And people are often quite scared to share their thoughts and images and fears because they might be worried about what those thoughts mean or how other people will think about them for having those thoughts. So what I'm talking about here is intrusive thoughts. So what are intrusive thoughts? Intrusive thoughts are really thoughts that appear involuntary and are unwelcome. And they're often thoughts about an unpleasant idea or image, something that's upsetting and distressing. So, some of the themes of intrusive thoughts, and I guess this kind of makes sense as to why people don't really like to talk about them or get help when they're experiencing these thoughts, because they can be about very distressing themes like sex, violence, religion, death, and sexual identity. So, for example, I've worked with many clients who have intrusive thoughts about their sexual identity. So perhaps they identify as straight, but they have intrusive thoughts that they are not straight, or the other way around. And they find these thoughts very distressing and very confusing because it kind of conflicts with, how they feel about their sexual preferences and identity. So that's one of the themes. Other themes of these intrusive thoughts that people often avoid seeking help for could be around hurting someone else or someone dying, or it could be around, if you're very religious, you might have an intrusive thought that you don't believe in God. So even though you know that you believe in God, you also have these intrusive thoughts that you don't believe in God. Hello, I can see I've got one person live. Thanks for joining me live. I'm just talking about OCD and intrusive thoughts, and particularly those really distressive, intrusive thoughts that nobody talks about, such as sexual, violent, religious, or death-orientated thoughts. And today, because this is such an area where there's so much stigma and it's so distressing for people, and these kind of thoughts just aren't talked about. So I just want to share two things about intrusive thoughts that will hopefully be helpful to someone who might be out there struggling with these kind of thoughts and who hasn't felt safe enough to share them with anyone yet. So the first thing I want people to hear and to understand is that actually intrusive thoughts are so normal. It's more normal to have them than to not have them. So pretty much everyone experiences intrusive thoughts, but because they're so quick, they often kind of just come and then go. We don't often pay attention to them, and we also often don't talk to people about them because of the content. So I'll give you an example of an intrusive thought that I experienced a while ago. So when my daughter was a newborn baby and she was really little and fragile, and I was kind of a new mum, a little bit scared that I might hurt her or something like that, I used to get an intrusive thought that I was going to drop my daughter when I was changing her nappy. And it was a thought, but it was also kind of an image, like I would actually see myself dropping her. Okay, so that's just an example of a normal intrusive thought. Other people get intrusive thoughts about, hurting someone or, accidentally doing something. And, they're just really, really normal thoughts. But because we don't talk about them, people don't realize how normal they are. So I'm really lucky because I'm trained in CBT and I understand OCD. When I had that intrusive thought, I knew that it didn't mean anything about me as a mum. It didn't mean that I was going to drop her or that I wanted to drop her. It was just one of those thoughts that popped into my head. So that's the first thing that I really want people who are experiencing intrusive thoughts, particularly really distressing ones, to understand, is that it's actually really normal to have them. And the second thing I want to explain is that it's not the thought that is necessarily the problem or the difficulty. It's the meaning we make of that thought. So if I had that intrusive thought about dropping my daughter and then I thought, oh no, that means that I want to, or that means that because I had that thought it's going to happen, then I would obviously be really, really distressed about that. But if I just have that thought and accept that it was just an intrusive thought, then I don't feel as upset about it. It's still unpleasant, no one really likes these thoughts. That's why they're called intrusive thoughts, and the definition of them is unwanted thoughts. So often people struggling with OCD around these intrusive thoughts interpret them as meaning something about them. So because I had that thought, I must be a bad person, or I must be about to do this terrible thing. And so then they often feel really, really distressing emotions like shame, fear, terror, based on these thoughts. And then they often, because of how they feel about them and the way they believe them to mean something, they often keep them to themselves and don't tell anyone about them. So sometimes when I see people with OCD who have had these intrusive thoughts for many, many years, they have just been carrying this burden of these thoughts. And, often, people who are just really lovely, caring people, are carrying around these beliefs that because they have these intrusive thoughts that they're somehow awful people or bad people. So I really wanted to do this vlog because the earlier that people can seek help around their OCD and these intrusive thoughts, the earlier they can unburden themselves of those and learn strategies to actually cope with those thoughts and to support themselves through them. And even just telling someone for the first time can give a real sense of relief, but it can also be very scary, understandably. So look, I just wanted to talk about that other side of OCD. Like most people know about the checking and the cleaning and that kind of OCD, but there is another type of OCD that's less talked about, but very, very distressing. So if you're watching this and you feel like you could use some support around your intrusive thoughts, or if you know someone in your life who might struggle with these kind of thoughts or with any type of OCD or anxiety, please feel free to contact me, to ask me any questions or to book an appointment if you feel like you need some support. If you watch this video and you think that other people might benefit from engaging with this idea about intrusive thoughts and just understanding a little bit more about them, please like or comment or share. And I think that's it for today. I might talk a little bit more about a different type of anxiety tomorrow, or I might talk a little bit more about OCD tomorrow. I'll just see how we go with this post and how much interest there is around it. Okay, thank you. Bye.